Okay, here's your sweetie. Obviously, figuring you know about the top. That tire's really old. These tires are also really old. So I do tires just for safety. You see a lot of cracking. And then some of this stuff is going to be things that I recommend more so than things that it really needs, like the oil in here, so differential transfer case, manual transmission, obviously oil change, front differential oil, and then I'd really consider your brake fluid and your coolant, mainly because both of those, so all those fluids as a maintenance is what I would recommend. If I were going to prioritize it, I'd do the oil change as the first. I'd probably do the coolant as the second. I'd probably do the brake fluid as the third. The brake fluid gets water in it and it causes corrosion inside the brake system. The coolant becomes acidic over time and it could start to actually eat away at the engine. Internally, I was a little surprised. These coolant hoses look actually pretty good. It looks like they were done. So I was expecting you to need coolant hoses, but I think I'd run with what you got right here. Looks like your brake hoses have held up fairly well. This thing needs a really good lube, so some of these Zerks, I'm going to try to shoot them with grease, but there's a chance that, you know, they may need to be replaced. So I'll try to do that, and then we'll see where we're at. Your shocks are old and rusty, but they seem to be working. So that would be a thing to consider. Depends on kind of what you want. Same for all four. And then also your steering damper right here, if you look, it looks like it might have leaked. So those are a little bit hard to check. If you get a symptom of like you hit a bump at a high speed and you start getting this wobble in the front end, that would be indication of your steering damper. So just showing you what I see. Like your shocks, for example, look dry. The shocks didn't leak, but the steering dampener looks like it might have. And then for your exhaust, you got a rattle here. Looks like the muffler was changed, and it looks like this popped off. So there's a little tack weld, and then this tailpipe is off of here. So I think probably the thing to do is weld that up. It's probably what I would do. It doesn't look like this is rusty. It just looks like it slipped out more than anything. And I don't think that the clamp will be enough. I think it'll need to be clamped and welded. And then your rear drums, to really check those, I need to pull them apart. I was able to peek inside. I don't really see anything alarming, but you know, it's hard to say without taking it apart. And if I go to pull those drums, I'm going to bet you that I'll break one of the retaining pins, like right here. That pin will probably get broken. There's probably going to be a ridge on them, so I wouldn't pull the drums apart unless you're committed to replacing everything that is in there, most likely. Your front brakes look pretty good. I was a little surprised. They don't even really look all that rusty. A little rusty, but not bad. And it looks like the pads are pretty thick. So I'd say, you know, if you wanted to save some money there, you could just run those. If you want everything new, no problem. Radiator looked decent. Don't see any leaks. Kind of nice. It's old, so it's all metal. If that was a plastic side tank, it'd be leaking. So that's what I saw. Let me lower it down. All right, I saw the new battery. Those Duracell seem pretty good. I know that's a Sam's Club special. The air filter I didn't put all the way back in because you can tell there's definitely been some of this clay or whatever this weird red dust has got in. So I wouldn't really play games with that one. I'd do that. Like I said, the coolant looks good, but if it's old, and it most likely is, it becomes acidic over time, so I wouldn't play any games with that. This goop right here, what I'll do is probably recommend cleaning that up some more, but it's not really hurting anything either. Still be good to get it cleaned up. Your belt's got quite a bit of cracking there, so you definitely want to do that. I popped your brake fluid off, your cap off. That's why it's a little bit wet. The brake fluid's dark, but more importantly, it's old, and it collects oil. I mean, it absorbs water. Absorbs water over time, and that water is distributed through the brake system, and it can actually start to rust some of your brake caliper, pistons, and wheel cylinders and stuff. So that brake fluid, being that old, really should be done. And then looks like that was all my notes out of here for visual, but this has a distributor cap. And so like old school tune-up style, that'd be replace the cap, the rotor, the wires, and the spark plugs as a preventative maintenance, but it actually seemed like it ran okay. So if you wanted to hold off on that, you know, I don't really see any issue with it. But if you want to be problem free, you know, that's something that was getting maintained like every 24,000 miles back in the day with this one. So otherwise decent. Like I said, your hoses are new. This hose was repaired, but I don't really see an issue with the repair. So not horrible. All right, and then it looks like most of your lights are working. Oh, windshield, obviously you saw that crack. The windshield wipers, you know, they looked like actually they were working okay, but it's one of those things where if it's been sitting and they look okay, and then you start to use it, they might actually break apart, but leave that up to you. They'll actually look decent for right now. Yes, yes, and yes. So not bad on the lights. You can see this sweet spare tire is pretty vintage. But on the turn signals, unfortunately, right's a yes. Left's a So when it comes on solid like that, a lot of times it's a flasher, but if it's a flasher, it would be left and right. So I'm actually not exactly sure what you got going on with the turn signals there. Horn works. Blower motor squeaks a little. But it does work. I actually forgot, so I just lifted it back up. Here's what I found on that fuel filter. So the fuel filter, normally this metal line up here would come all the way down and connect, but it looks like something must have gone wrong. And so it's got like a piece of rubber fuel line, which appears to be working fine, but even still, I wanted to just point it out, like that little bit of a kink is a little abnormal. The problem is that metal line would come down and have an integrated bend and then connect to this. Something must have went wrong with that fitting. So as a maintenance, a fuel filter is not a bad idea, but just be aware there's, you know, an existing repair there. All right, and then this being a 92 will need to be smogged, and I have really no way to know if it'll pass because it's not an OBD2 type smog. This is too old for that. So it's just gonna be a question of bringing it down, and they're gonna have to stick a probe up the tailpipe and see if it passes. Be kind of nice to keep it registered in Arizona. So consider that.